Hello and welcome to Dice Jesters. My name is Julie.
And my name is Dave.
And we are a merry and whimsical board game podcast where we dive into games with curious minds and a jester's grin, usually playing them around 10 times or more depending on how much we like it. Usually the resummonings happen to be more. But today we'll be discussing our Jester's Gambit, which is a feast for Odin.
Yes.
Right, yeah. You were really excited about it. You had the whole backstory with it where you're like, let me just be thematical and in your way of beauty, you know? And
I don't know if the backstory was as thematic as it was historical, which gets me pumped up.
Oh,
and this game is very historically grounded. Like, it comes with an entire separate almanac of historical facts about basically everything in the game, which I find very impressive.
You know, I feel like I need to start looking at the rule book. Let's do this. We'll do like a little family game to cleanse our palate from this game. And then I will teach you. You're laughing.
Well, it's funny because there's a card game called Teach You.
Oh.
You know, you teach you. I don't know.
Let me
But I think it's more than a 2-player game, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
It's a trick-taking game, which
yeah, I'm not
it's a genre you're not a big fan of, maybe?
I'm not good at trick-taking games. Every trick-taking game you have ever showed me, I have failed miserably at.
I would say card games maybe not your forte, based on...
No, that's not true.
Name one.
Name one? San Juan.
Okay, we're pretty 50-50 in that one. This is so fun.
It's definitely not that compass
competition
one.
That we have. By the way, before playing board games, we were never very competitive with each other, but it's like this brought out a whole side where we're messaging each other throughout the day, like, you better wait till you come home. You know,
like, I have so much prepared for when you get home. Yeah. I'm like, what?
I'm going to demolish you in this game tonight.
No, I know there's another card game. Is Century in a way a card game, or is it more a resource diversion?
It's a card-driven resource conversion game. They love all this lingo as you get further in the hobby. It's like we speak this language and we can just throw terms out. And they make sense.
I love that you say that, and you're like, oh, as you get further in the hobby. And I'm all like, I can get super far into the hobby. I still don't understand half the lingo. You're
still working on orthogonally. Didn't that come up somewhere recently? And I was like, look, it's a real word.
I don't know. The language is difficult. Anyhow, no, I wanted to maybe put a sad closure on Philip.
Oh,
perhaps.
Well, it's fitting because Odin had a couple of ravens, didn't he? So, what better way to kick off?
Well, I thought they were hawks.
Well, I think it's debated.
Oh, it's debated.
Potentially. Okay. I know there's a game called Odin's Ravens, and I'm not an expert in Norse mythology by any means.
I am not.
However, I'm pretty sure that Odin had a couple of ravens and maybe a wolf too, I believe.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't he have like a big dire wolf?
I think so. I don't know if it was a dire wolf, but it was some kind of wolf.
Okay. Anywho, so Philip, for those who are new, there was this crow by my job, and I just really wanted to be its friend. Yes, I understand that I have an aversion for birds, but Philip is a crow, and crows are really smart. You can, like, train them to do cool things. They also can talk. Yeah, fun fact, okay? I would really like a crow. Really fun. Or perhaps a raven. Either or. Ravens are really big, so maybe they would get along with Lupin. I just don't want something to hurt Lulu. So anywho, feeding this bird. Right, and
talking to the bird.
And talking to the bird and recording my journey with Philip, and he just stopped showing up.
Okay, you said there's an end. I thought the story was going to go a very morbid direction.
Well, no, just let me finish. I feel like I should draw Philip, a memorial for Philip.
A shrine. You should have a Philip shrine.
I do. I don't know if I mentioned this, but he gave me a bone. Did I mention this? Okay.
At least to me.
Well, I had to throw it away because the inside molded. And I was kind of stressy, depressy, so I threw it away. And, well, his final goodbye, I heard some squawks. And I went out, and it was Philip, and he left me a feather. And then I haven't seen him since.
When was this?
I don't know, 2 weeks ago. Okay. I just haven't brought it up because I've been sad about it. Because he used to visit me. He used to visit me at my window. Now he doesn't do that anymore.
Well, he's probably moved on to a better place.
Oh my gosh. Do you know that crows and ravens mourn their dead? They have a ceremony for them.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they bring gifts and things like that?
I don't know if they bring gifts. I do know that they all kind of circle it and have kind of a memorial service for it.
There's a lot of interesting facts about ravens that I've learned through this journey with Philip.
Well, Philip's a crow.
Is there a difference between crows and ravens?
Yes, there's a difference between crows and ravens. Okay. Well, we're way off topic now. I just wanted to give my closure to Philip. Okay, maybe I'll find a new crow. Maybe I'll find a raven. Maybe I'll start talking about that owl that I had met. We're cool. Okay, so A Feast for Odin is a game that I received on my birthday. Dave and I exchanged games for our birthday this year. Yeah, it was this year, right? Yeah. We did a little, because our birthdays are so close. They're like a week apart.
Yeah.
We're both Aries. That's why we're so competitive.
Factual.
Factual, that's what it is. But, so yes, I told Dave that I wanted a big strategic game, and he got me Feast for Odin.
Yeah, it was one of the three.
Looking at Feast for Odin, I'm extremely intimidated.
Hey, you asked for this. You said,
I know.
You said, find my limit for how much of a game I can handle. Like, how big of a game. But this is pretty massive.
It's scary because it looks like it has like an Arnak journal and magnifying glass track on one side. And then you have a map that has like what looks like seasons. You got like summer, fall, first winter, and then second winter. And then you have your map, which has like a farm for pets or something. And then you have this kind of water space. And then amongst all of that, you have like a table where you eat with somebody. But then the part that really gets me is this negative map. It looks like those tables, those multiplication tables where you go to like 1 and then you go to the other number and then you meet in the middle and boom, and 1 times 1 is 1. You know, that's what it looks like.
You know what it kind of reminds me of looking at it is that, remember that game on computers that was like the Mine?
Yes, Mine!
Yeah. Minefield or...
Minefield, yeah.
Not Minecraft. It was
Minefield, definitely not Minecraft. That was
but you would clip the squares and then try to figure out where the landmines were.
Yes. Well, it was like when you clicked 1, it was just kind of like there was something to it. Because I did beat a level. Beat 1 level.
Just 1.
Just 1. So, I don't know. You know, I think what's that saying? Where you did the assignment or whatever. And you found a game that I might be... scared of, yeah.
So here's the thing, though, because before we get in and begin playing the game, I've never played this game before in my life. This is my very first time. I've wanted to play it for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I saw pictures of it when it first came out, I thought, how big can games possibly get? Like, this is bordering on ridiculous, because I'd played some quote-unquote bigger games, and this game, when it came out, was very threatening to me. Like, I thought of this as the pinnacle of what games could be in terms of their physical presence on the table. Because when you look at the action, there's the action board, there's the player boards, there's resources, there's these like additional maps over here. There's
Tetris.
There's 2 trays full of tiles. There's all this stuff on the table. And setting it up for the first time. Well, first of all, backing up, before even setting it up, this was the longest punch session, not punch like physical punch, but punching cardboard off of cardboard sheets took me a very long time to get everything out. And then I bagged things up. I got things just correctly inside the trays, which are really nice, by the way. And then getting it all organized, like that took me a good chunk of my day. And then this has been a multi-day learning experience for me, because I punched everything out. I got things organized. That's really my first step when I learn a game, because I'm a very visual, tactile person. So physically touching the components, looking at the rulebook, what each thing is, organizing them together helps me understand what am I actually looking at on the table. Then I set everything up on the table, and it took me a while to configure things just right, because we don't have a massive table. It's big enough for 2-player games that we play, but this pushed the limit where there's like no wasted space on the table in this game. Like everything fits just perfectly, and
maybe
there's not
we have
really
a small table.
Yeah. But all that to say, there's no additional space. Like, I don't know if this game's going to grow as we play it, but there's no more space. Like, we're going to need to bring a second table out to put to the side if we want to keep playing it. Reading through the rule book, I've read through it 3 times now, so I feel prepared. Like, I could teach you this game, but I do feel like playing the first game is going to be more of an exploration learning experience. But as I've read through it a few times, the first time felt very intimidating. Like, there's a lot going on in this game for sure. But then as I read it 2 more times, I was like, this game there's a lot, but it doesn't seem like any one thing that you do is really that complicated. There's just a lot of things. Like, what my initial impression before our first impression, or like what I predict will happen, is I think that this game has a lot of different strategies you can go, and it deceives you into thinking it's this huge, complicated game, which it might take us a couple rounds before everything actually starts to click, I think. But I believe that it's designed so you kind of pick one area and go after that well. And that one thing that you're doing isn't massively complicated. It just seems like a lot because there's so many different strategies you can take. But you're not going to do everything in the game. You're going to pick like a couple things and do them as well as you can, I think. Okay. I could be misinterpreting the game and the nature of it and everything. But I think, when you look at a game like Agricola, everything is super laid out. Like, you want to do A, B, C, and D. Otherwise, you get negative points. Like, this game, it seems like you get points for a lot of things, or you'll lose points for not having them on your player board. But it seems a little bit more open in terms of what you can do. So I'll be curious what that experience is like for us.
Yeah, me too. Because right now, this game's looking pretty scary.
A little scary. I mean, like, yeah, it scared me a little bit when I first saw it. But, based on the games that we've played a few where you were like, this looks intimidating on the table. But then you play through it once. You're like, okay, I think I got it. Play through it a couple more times. You're like, oh, actually, this game is really simple. You're just doing these couple of things. And you have other, like, distractions thrown in. But this is really what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Like, when you break it down to the bare minimum, this is what you do. You do it.
I think board games are only as intimidating as you allow them to be. Like
when you ask for a raise at work.
Yeah, yeah. But I think and I've been in situations myself where I've been taught pretty heavy games, and I've felt intimidated where I was afraid of not getting something, or I was embarrassed if I had to ask follow-up questions and stuff. And I think even strategic games can be a welcoming experience if you present it in the right way. And I remember I wouldn't consider this a heavy game by any means, but the best teach of a game that I experienced was at a convention. Somebody taught Roll for the Galaxy. And I remember the guy did such a good job teaching the game where he kind of walked everybody through their first couple of turns and taught as he went. It was like the most brilliant teach style I've ever seen in my life. And that game could be complicated because of all the iconography. Like, you played Race for the Galaxy, it's like the same thing. But he did it in such a nice, welcoming way where there were all ages at the table and everybody had a good time. So I think any game, no matter how deep, no matter how strategic, no matter how many complex rules are going on, I think can be taught to anybody. It's just about doing it in the right way.
Oh. Well, whatever their name is always welcome to our court.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, let's get into it then. I see what you're trying to do. Give me that confidence. Well, let's go see if that confidence transitions onto the board.
Perfect. Well, I will teach you the game, and then we'll come back to talk about how it went.
And we are back after our first play of Feast for Odin, which has been quite the interesting journey indeed, seeing as I stared at it on the table for a few days before deciding to...
Well, to be fair, I was reading through the rules, making sure I understood everything before our first play.
Yeah, but you even read it like 2 times before I said, okay.
I think about 3 times.
Thank you. Well, we read it the whole first round, that's for sure.
Yes.
But before we get into those details, I wanted to give an update about my adopted crow son that doesn't know he's my adopted crow son, Philip. So I had thought that Philip was MIA for a bit, thought something tragic happened to him because he hadn't been visiting me at all. But then I saw him and I said, there's my Philip, living and thriving. There he is. I was so excited. I said, Dave, I saw Philip today. And I was really excited.
Was he excited to see you?
I don't think he saw me.
He knows you exist.
He should know my vehicle. It's a very bright color.
Yeah, he probably waits for you every morning to make sure that you arrive safely.
I know. I think he's kind of mad because I haven't been feeding him, so.
But it was fitting that you saw Philip because, thinking about playing A Feast for Odin, we talked initially before our first play of a little bit about the Philip saga.
Yeah.
And how it does relate to A Feast for Odin, with
because
Odin
he may have
ravens.
crows or ravens or hawks.
I intermixed those two terms. I'm still not convinced there's a difference. But it was a sign from Odin.
Oh my gosh.
He sent the sign of Philip to say, yes, this is a game for you guys. So Odin was giving us his blessing to set forth and be prosperous within this feast of a game.
Yes. Well, I won the first round.
Well, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Well, I like to start with that. I like to just go out the table. Okay, so Feast for Odin is big.
Massive.
It's a big game. It covered our whole table. We may have a smaller table than some, but it covered our whole table. And I saw that and was intimidated. Now, I sat down for our first game, and by the end of the game, I was like, okay, yeah, it's not that bad. It's not bad. It just looks big. It looks intimidating. The rule book is thick.
It's very large.
Because I asked you a question, and you said, yeah, see? And I was like, oh, let me read it. And then you closed it and passed it to me. And then there's a second rule book with an index, right?
Which is very useful. Because each card has a number at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
You can just reference that card. It'll give you some insight about the card and clarifications.
Right.
But there's actually a third rule book that's just historical context for everything in the game. So
I
it's
feel
three
like that's
books.
your favorite part.
It is.
Because your eyes light up when you said that.
Yeah.
I feel like if we made a board game, you would want to add the history of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There would be, that the backstory, how you open up the rule book, and I always read that backstory. It would be like 17 pages long, just that part alone.
I could see you wanting to do something that's very you-based. I remember when we first started talking, we were discussing, I always say it wrong, but the boards with cheese and wine.
Oh, charcuterie boards.
Charcuterie boards. So I feel as if you could go into the detail and be like, wine is made as such. This cheese is specifically made in France and can only be made in France. I feel like you would do something like that.
Oh, of course.
Something historical of some sort. So, anywho, first game. If you played if you played Le Havre, you can play this game.
You think so?
I do think so.
I think anybody can play this game.
I think anybody can play this game.
Right approach.
Right. I think this game is big, and the way I learn is very different from anybody. It's very press buttons and figure it out. So you were going through and discussing with me how to do things, and I just kind of said, okay, let's just do it.
Let's just do it.
Let's just do it. Kind of like jumping off a cliff into water for the first time. Let's just get into it.
And can I just say, anytime in my board gaming experience that I'm teaching somebody who doesn't typically play a lot of games, usually hear this from people who don't play a lot of games, in my personal experience, they'll say, well, you know what, this is too much. Let's just start playing. I'm sure I'll catch on. And that's valid. But anytime somebody is asked from us just to get started, it then can slow down the game, where then they have a lot of questions that I could have answered initially. And it's not my favorite approach, but in this case, I feel like it made sense for your learning style. And I think that you and I are on the same page, that we can kind of learn as we go through the game, because I see the first game as a learning round. I'm not expecting this to be competitive in any way. We're just simply reinforcing and learning the rules. So I decided, let's just go ahead and jump in. What was your experience like, just kind of exploring through the first game and pushing the buttons, as you said?
Well, you said it when we went for our walk afterward, our clearing mind walk.
Well, I compared it to when you play a video game and there's a tutorial in the beginning.
And I
was like, you're the kind of person who would skip the tutorial and just start playing and figure it out. I'm the person who does the tutorial because I like to know what I'm doing, but you're more, I think you like that sense of discovery. I don't want to know what's going on. Like the computer game way back in the day, Myst. I don't know if you remember that. You gave no context. You just were thrown into this island.
And there was a tree.
Puzzles to solve. I didn't get very far. I got super frustrated with that game, and to the point where I didn't do much within it. But anyway, what was that like?
The game Myst? Or just pressing buttons?
Pressing buttons in A Feast for Odin.
So in A Feast for Odin, yeah, it made it a lot easier because... So, in general, the learning round game for this one, I think when it comes to games that may seem intimidating, it's good to look at the first game as a learning round, especially knowing that we're going to play it 9 more times.
At least.
Thank you. Even if somebody wants to play a game 3 times, I think it's still good to take that first game as the learning game and just kind of work through it depending on how the person learns. So I'm a very visual learner. I always want to do it myself because that's how I'm going to learn it. Anytime anybody just talks to me, I will not retain that information. I don't know why. It just doesn't happen. Like in school, I was really good at hands-on stuff. Like science class, when we mixed potions, I was awesome. I don't know why I said potions, and so I'm from like a wizarding world. But in history class, I was terrible at history class until I got into the real world and graduated. Then I was really good at history class because I learned history differently and I was really interested in it then. And with that being said, it goes into how I learn board games, and I need to touch the pieces. I'm sure if you watch our YouTube videos, you probably have noticed that I'm always clicking something, or if you listen to our first season, all of the little piece noises is from me. It's definitely not from Dave. He can sit still. I just click around.
I'll just say I made the intentional decision for us to record this not with the game in front of us.
Because I'd be like, click, click, click. But I do need that hands-on experience to fully grasp something. And so when it came to learning this game, to make it less intimidating for me, it was just the whole jumping in. And I think when things are brought to its basics for me, it makes it easier. So I don't know if that's helpful for others, but when you put it at its core, it's a worker placement game. You place worker, you do action. Mm-hmm. Next turn.
And try to fill your board.
Yeah. And the designer of this game makes it more inviting to all people because it has that tracker in the middle that tells you what you're doing. So you never not know what you're doing unless you're trying to come up with a strategy. So if you're trying to think of what you plan on doing, then you may not know at that time, until it gets rolling. But if you're simple, like, okay, this is what I want to do, you can do it. You can't ever really not do it as long as you can get the materials. So.
Yeah, true. I think a couple of things that really stood out to me learning this. Yes, I definitely think your first play of A Feast for Odin is going to look very intimidating on the table. And I predicted that when we played through the first game, we would realize, okay, there's a lot of stuff on the table and a lot of things you can do, but you don't have to do everything. You can kind of focus on one area. And I think what would be really beneficial to learning this game would be to play with somebody who's played before, who can kind of like walk you through, because I think you should just jump into this game. Like, you just need to understand worker placement, place your workers on spot, do what it says, and the actions are pretty simple. But somebody to kind of guide you, like, your first few turns, you're going to want to maybe just do this. Like, don't worry about everything else. Just grab these couple of things, and then you can place them on your board. You can use that for food. Here's how that works. And I think this game lends itself well to learning as you go like that, because it doesn't seem, and I think that Uwe Rosenberg mentioned this within the rulebook in like the first couple of pages, because you start your hand with just one occupation card, and he said to maybe use your occupation card to guide you in the beginning of the game of what to do, and that there isn't really much that you can do in the beginning of the game to really derail your long-term strategy, and that the turns and the end of the game are a lot more crucial. So as the game ramps up, those later turns, you're going to be able to do a lot more stuff. But then the other thing that the game does that I'm not necessarily a fan of, and I know you and I always just like to go to whatever the normal mode is, but it actually does include a shortened version, which is just one fewer round. But the last round is the longest because you have the most number of workers. But I would actually recommend, if this is your first time playing, maybe do the shortened version, just knowing that it's a learning round. That way, by the time you get to that last end of the short game, you will know the rules. I would go back, reread the rulebook one more time, and now you're ready to actually like experience the full game. Just having played it once, that's my personal experience, because there were definitely some things as you and I went through that got a little bit confusing. Yeah. But I do like that the game, although it looks intimidating on the table, you only start with 1 occupation card, because in Agricola, you start with 7 occupation and 7 minor improvements, so 14 cards in your hand. Like, that's still intimidating to me, having played the game like 25 times.
Yeah, that's pretty intimidating.
But just having 1, like, this can help me, and I can try to play this card, and now I can build something around that. And then throughout the game, you get a few more, and that's like a good amount of occupation cards. Like, I don't need a huge hand. I think that game does this really well. It would have been a lot more difficult of an experience if I had a lot more hidden information. So that was one thing that I think lent itself to learning the game well. And the other thing you mentioned was the round structure tile. Each round you're going to move down the tracker, and there's different phases of each round. And I'll be honest, when I saw that for the first time, I was a little bit worried. And for the reason of when you and I played Pulsar 2849, one thing that detracted from our enjoyment of that game was how much administrative upkeep there was between rounds. Like, we did 2 actions, and then boom, we have like 30 things that we now need to do, and there's no checklist to run down. Okay, do this, do that. You can't have to keep going back to the rulebook to make sure you're not forgetting something. But I found that you move this cube down this track, and then each little thing that you do is quick enough where, okay, now we're drawing a card, now we're getting our worker, now we're getting our income bonus, and then our tile bonuses and all that kind of stuff. So it's done in a really good way, but I would say that the administrative upkeep aspect wasn't overbearing. I don't think it detracted from, because you're getting things during that point, like as you go through. None of it is negative except for the feast portion where you have to put the food tiles on your table and stuff. But
I do feel that Pulsar 28 is a little different when it comes to that, though, because you really only get 2 to 3 moves depending on how you use your dice, you know? So, with this game, you get more than that. You can have 4 moves, you can have 2 moves, you can kind of pick and choose how many moves you get, depending on how many meeples you want to use to have a higher bonus, you know? And that's why I feel that the upkeep of it didn't feel like upkeep, because you needed it.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say that I appreciate that you always get the same amount of workers as the other person. I think that's a really neat aspect, and it makes you have to feed the feast just as much as the other person, as opposed to Agricola, where you can get more people or you don't have to get more people.
Yeah.
So then you will always owe less food than somebody or more food than somebody, while this game it's, no, you're forced to have this individual feed them all.
And you know, as each round goes, you're going to get one more. And I did like the fact that you didn't have to use an action to get more workers. It just is something that's inherently in the design structure of the game. And I also love that getting one more worker each round, it gives this really nice progression feeling of the game, where the first round you take like a few actions, and then the last one you're taking either really big ones or a bunch of really small ones. But it makes that last round feel more satisfying. You're able to do a lot more things. So yeah. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. So right now it's looking good.
It is looking,
it's looking good. It's looking like I'm excited to get into the next 9. And I do firmly believe, just like Le Havre, that we can knock it down to 45 minutes.
I don't know how long. I think our first round was about 90 minutes maybe. But I'll be curious. I always keep track. I don't time our first round because I think it skews the average, but
yeah, that's true.
I will be curious to see what our playtime will be. We tend to play pretty quick.
We do.
So I think we'll get it down. But this game seems like it has a lot to enjoy.
It does. It does. And it's way less intimidating now that I played around.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So shall we get into 9 more plays today? I'm just kidding.
We've done that for a few games.
We have.
Yeah.
I kind of want to let this one breathe, give it a chance to, in between rounds, I don't know.
To season?
To season, yes.
To season the salted meat? And we are back after 9 plays. So I know Dave and I said that for this season, we're going to go until we break that game. Do you like that little...
Or we drop to the floor.
Until we drop to the floor. But for A Feast for Odin, we decided to stop at 10 plays. And we'll go into more detail about that momentarily. But a big reason for it, or I don't know, do you just want to jump right into it?
Yeah, you want me to share my perspective on it? Because we got to the final round, or as we were approaching the final round, I was like, so are we going to keep going beyond 10? Are we feel like we're going to stop at 10? How are you feeling about this journey? I kept kind of going back and forth on this in terms of how I felt about it, how much fun it was, how much I wanted to continue going. And there was a period of time where I was like, oh man, this game is just so brutal. And then I was like, oh, this game's awesome. Like, I can do A, B, and C. And then I was like, oh man, this game is like so tough. And then we got to the end and I was like, okay, after 10 plays, I feel like I could continue playing. And I do, spoiler alert, want to come back to this one and keep playing. But that sense of discovery of different strategies or things, possibilities that you can do within the game, I feel like we've kind of done the things that you can do within the game.
Have we though? We haven't purchased 2 island things.
That's true. There's
so much we haven't done, but the reason we haven't done it is because it's so scary.
It's daunting. But I feel like I'm at a good point, and that's the point of what we wanted to do was, if we get to 10 and we're like, oh, we want to keep playing, but, we need to stop because we have to move on to the next game so we can stay on some kind of arbitrary schedule.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we can keep going. The door is open for that. At this point, I feel comfortable closing that door for now, but returning to it in the future to continue. And there's a mini expansion that is included in the game we haven't even used. And I think that our goal for the 10 by 10 challenges is to play the game without any expansions. We're going to focus on the base game, decide if we like it or not, and then if we come back to it as a resummoning, or when we come back to it as a resummoning, we would then explore any additional expansion content. But I kind of gave a little bit of away of my feelings on the game of where it started. Not incredible details, but let's talk about that whole experience over those 9 years. How was your emotional journey with A Feast for Odin? Where did it end up for you?
I love that you ask, because out of all of the games that we've played so far, I would say that this game has had the most impactful and or greatest change from start to finish. So, I walked around the table for days.
A few days.
Yeah.
I had read the rulebook a few times, set it up, and we're like, oh, not tonight. Let's not start it tonight. I'm not ready. Not in the right mental place.
And I just didn't want to. And then we recorded, and I said, I don't want to. It's intimidating, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can listen to the first half of the podcast.
Yeah, we technically just talked about that. Your perspective.
This is like weeks later, but here we are.
2 or 3 weeks later, yeah.
But then we finally sit down, we play the game, and it clicks. Instead of being intimidated by it, I realize that yes, the game is big. Yes, it may be thinky, right? That's a word.
Yeah.
That's terminology, right? But the designer, Uwe Rosenberg, made it easy to follow along. So he made this kind of tracking, like round tracking, right? Would that be rounds? And you just follow it. You literally follow it. The difficult part of the game, or the more strategic part of the game, is where you're going to place your workers to find out what it is you want to do in the game.
And how you're going to do it.
Yeah. So it's a hefty game. Like, hefty as in there's a lot of different things you can do. A lot of different things you can figure out. Lots of distractions, because there's negatives all over the board.
So many distractions in this game.
You have your mini game of Tetris.
Yeah. So I can't wait to talk about that.
Yes. So this is the first game where I played and then I would stand lingering over the table. It even got to the point where I saw you looking at my board, so I would clear my board because I didn't want you to study what I did.
Well, and there were some really interesting moments in our 10 plays where initially I thought, this game is you just fill up your board from left to like the bottom left all the way to the top right, and then that's just the goal of the game. And there was a round of the game where I looked over at your board and you got one of those exploration awards and you filled that in. You didn't even you barely touched the main bonus section of your main board, and you just covered in the negatives. And I was like, wait, you can do that? Oh yeah, it says in the rulebook you can literally place things anywhere. You just can't cover up the income squares until you've covered everything to the bottom left of that and across, down, all that stuff. So I was like, wow, I'm playing the game not efficiently or right. You're right. Those exploration boards have better bonuses on them and you can get more income and you can fill them in a lot quicker. So I'm going to go and I kind of just kept chasing the strategies.
You kept
I was
watching me.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, I need to do that because the thing about the game is in the very beginning, everything feels impossible. You're like, I have this whole board with like 50,000 negative points on it. I have like all these tiny tiles I need to fill everything in. And you start out with like 5 or 6 workers. I can't remember how many. And then by the end, you have a lot more. But you're like, how on earth am I going to fill this in over the course of 7 rounds? It just doesn't make sense. And then to realize, like, oh, I need to get other boards to add on to that. I'm like, I don't even know how to fill in this board. I'm not going to add in, like, 3 other boards. That I'm like, that is so much. But then you realize the more stuff you fill in, the more bonuses you're going to get. And in turn, it kind of ramps up. You're starting to get all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it was really cool as we went through to realize I'm not playing the game the right way. There's other ways to play the game within this like almost sandboxy type style. Like, oh, is this important? Maybe not. Maybe I'll try to do this round. Oh, that's not working. I'll try something else. But within that, you just have to know, like, it kind of makes your brain explode with possibilities. If you're somebody like, okay, I'll just say up front, I'm not good at this game.
You're not good at thinking out of the box. That was the difference. I thought outside the box.
You did.
Like, I was handed a box, and I made a box outside of it.
Yeah, it is very true. But you're somebody who, when it comes to, I don't know, maybe I'm a more linear thinker. I'm a very like structured thinker. I like my games to provide, like in Agricola, it's very confining. Mm-hmm. In this game, there's a lot of open possibilities of ways that you can go. The whole action board is available. There's no like, oh, each round another one's going to come out. The scoring,
scoring's difficult.
Scoring is difficult, but you can really focus. Even having all of these possibilities on the board, it seems like your brain can just kind of know how to focus and tie things together in a way that like makes sense cohesion wise. Whereas I'm like, oh, I guess I'll do a little bit of this and I'll do a little bit of that. And then by the end, I'm like, oh, I have like negative 70 points. Oh, that's not, my lowest score was like maybe 40 or something like that. But you would get close to 100 and my score was like half of yours. I'm like, how are you doing this? And then I'd try to do your same strategy and wouldn't even come close.
And that was so funny when you started taking the Tetris pieces and I was like, Dave, you need to blink and then put it on the board. And you're like, what do you mean you need to blink and put it on the board? And I was like, you have to put the shape, burn it into your eyes.
Yeah.
And then close your eyes, stare at the board, and then the shape is, you're like, what are you talking about?
So yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about too, because first of all, it's difficult for me to figure out how I'm going to create some kind of engine that will get me this stuff to be able to fill in my board, because you almost have to start with these small pieces so you can fill them in. And then the big pieces are like enticing. Well, I want this big, whatever, but those don't really do anything for fitting around those bonus spaces. They only fill in those negative ones on the edge that don't give you anything ongoing. They're only good for the end. And so there was this puzzle of like, how do I get things in the right way? How do I have some kind of end of round bonuses that come to my way? How am I going to feed my people? And then there's this second layer on top of it of I need to get the right shape pieces to fit on my board in the right way so that I'm not wasting space or I'm using tiles inefficiently. And the game restricts you even further by stating in the rule book that once you place something on your board, you can't take it off. And I saw that people house rule that, like, you can rearrange things that you put on there within that round up until the income part. And I'm like, that is like absolutely so much. Not only, again, to figure out how I'm going to do things, but then how to place it on my board is like almost a game within itself that I feel like is a little unnecessary. Like that.
I love it.
I know you love it. You love it so much. But like, he made a game, and you haven't played it, but Patchwork. He's made these other really lightweight, approachable. Another term you learned within this game is polyomino.
What?
It's like a Tetris kind of piece, those like puzzle-looking pieces. He makes a lot of games like that, and I think if I want to play a game like that, I want it just to be that. I don't want like 1,000 other things going on, but this game, it just adds another layer of convoluted nature to the game, which people of your mindset are really going to love. Like, yes, I have to do all this stuff, but I also need to figure out how I'm going to literally puzzle it all together. And then there are people like me that's like, that's kind of overload for my brain. Mm-hmm. And all that to say, the experience of trying things out and trying to be good at this game, I think was a good challenge for me. It got me to think and it like stretches my brain in a way that I'm not used to, or is like beyond my normal everyday comfort level, which was it was a fun brain exercise and I enjoyed it. But what was your perception of that puzzle aspect within it?
I loved it. I loved it so much. I remember a few times looking at your board and then looking at you and being like, what are you doing? Because you had all the miscellaneous shape ones. I was like, stop getting those. They don't work for you, Dave. Get the squares.
Yeah,
I was like, just get the squares. The squares will work for you the best. And you were like, no, I can do it. And then we went for our walk afterwards, and I just said, you know how I always give you a hard time, how I can fit everything into one bag, and you could take the same amount of things and need two? Yes. I was like, this is like your shopping game.
Yes.
This is your shopping bag game.
Can I give that analogy? Because we had these every evening. We only played a Feast for Odin. I think we played it twice. Once on
a Saturday.
Most evenings we play it one time. We go for a Feast for Odin decompression walk to get some fresh air, get my blood flowing, decompress.
Clear
we
your
discuss
mind.
our strategies for that game, what we thought, and I was like, this game, what it reminds me of. This analogy will feel a little weird when you hear it, but when you play the game, it makes sense. It's like walking into a brand new grocery store and you were told you have to go get food for a party. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to tell you what everybody's preferences are. You kind of have to figure that out. You have to get things that meet everybody's needs. And by the way, this is a brand new grocery store where you don't know where anything is. So you don't know the right route to go. You don't know where to get things. So you kind of like meander your way around the store collecting things that you feel like are going to be good and helpful for this party. And you're like, okay, cool. I figured all that out. I'm good to go, right? No. Then you get to the checkout line, and it's a self-checkout, and the store restricts you. You can only get 2 bags. Other than that, like, it's illegal to go out of the store with more than 2 bags. And you're like, and whatever, in this arbitrary, fictitious world, you cannot leave the store without making sure everything fits in the bag. So then you get to the checkout, and nobody's going to help you. You have to figure out how to fit everything in, and everything that you picked up on the shelf is oddly shaped and not square in any type of way. I need to sit there for 15 to 20 minutes at checkout while I'm holding up a line, yes. Which is, metaphorically speaking, people waiting for your turn in this game as you're trying to like fit stuff on your board. While you try to fit it on your bag and you think you have to take it out, you like rearrange it, you're getting frustrated, you're sweating, and then you leave and you're like, I don't know what just happened in there. I disappeared for an hour and a half. I got this random stuff that I think is going to work. And that, to me, is what it was like playing a Feast for Odin, at least for the first 5 or 6 rounds.
Feast for Odin was so fun. I just love watching all of your little like sparkles in your eye where you're like, that's how you did that? Or, I didn't think of that. Or, wow, your bonuses are so much better than mine because you got the spare board. Or, how did you do that? How did you get all the boats to the immigration, right? Is that what it was?
The immigration, yeah.
And you were like, wait, when did you get that other boat? And I was like, because you could purchase it.
And you got so many points for the immigration. And then I realized, okay, this is where the game also, it kind of leads you astray and thinking like, the goal is to fill in your board. Well, yes, but not a single point comes from putting stuff on your board. The points come from the exploration boards, the sheds and houses, the huts or whatever, cattle, and then ships. But then also when you do an emigration action, you flip the ship over and put it on your feast area. It becomes, it fills in the space for less food that's required, but then it gives you a massive amount of points, like 18 to 21 points. And I feel like you literally cannot win this game unless you do emigration. And nowhere is that like completely evident until you see somebody else do it. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. But then you're like, there's actually not a lot of things in this game that give you points. It's just taking away negative points, which is kind of the same thing. But if you filled in your entire board, you would still just have 0 points unless you did those other things I mentioned. So there was a point in the game where I realized, wow, okay, I need to figure out actually how to get points as well.
Sorry, I was laughing. Because I just think about the different turns and think about just the games in general and how afterwards I started realizing that you were copying my strategy, so I started clearing my board for you.
Oh, yeah.
And then the last round, I just wanted to help you because I was just...
You felt bad.
I did.
Well, do you want to talk about the score? How many games you won versus me?
8?
Yeah, it was 8-2. which was almost a complete opposite of Trajan. That was 7-3. I just want to point that out so I'd feel a little better about myself.
Well, no, it has a little hamster wheel on it.
This had no hamster wheel. I mean, the whole...
Trajan did.
Yeah. This was...
Speaking of hamster, you really want a hamster. I mean, that's a different story, though, but yeah.
I mean, Agricola, Le Havre, A Feast for Odin. How do you compare these to those titles in terms of your overall experience? Like, can you see similarities? This game came out after those, so do you see from a design perspective how it evolved, his design process?
So I do see that... I don't know which one was first, Agricola or Le Havre?
Agricola and then Le Havre, yeah.
Oh, okay. I see things kind of from both of them. So from Agricola, with the worker placement, it has more worker placement similar to Agricola's, while Le Havre's has worker placement in a way with that coin that you can use, but it's not as close to it as it is Agricola's. And then for the cards, that one was similar to Agricola's as well, where you have cards, you can figure out how to use them, but they're not, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know, I do see similarities to Agricola. As for Le Havre, though, I don't really know. I'm sure there is, but I'd have to play it again.
Yeah.
My brain's kind of frizzled.
I would say that the resource conversion part reminded me of Le Havre. Because in this game, you're converting your tiles from, like, orange to red, and then red to green, and then green to blue.
Yeah. That reminded me of Century.
It did, yeah. And I don't know if we mentioned this, but the different colors, like, only green and blue can go on your board, but the green can't touch green. So there's all these other, like...
Well, it depends on what board you have, too.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's
because
true.
some boards have different rules. Some boards let you put food on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it all just kind of depends.
Yeah. Well,
I liked it. It tickled my brain.
I would vote that this one would be crowned by the court's laughter and bestowed upon the jester's shelf. Would you agree with me, or do you believe that it should be excused from the court with a polite bow?
The jester's shelf. It could come
Jester's
for
shelf.
resummoning, because I will surpass 100. It really bothers me that I didn't get 100.
And I'd be intrigued to try this Norwegian expansion that I have heard people talk about over the years as almost being like an essential expansion, I guess, that doesn't overly complicate the game, but it fixes some issues that people have had with it. I am curious about what that would change to the game. I don't really know anything about it beyond that, but we will definitely try it in the future. I would say, though, that if this is a game that somebody's thinking about picking up, I would say this game is a lot of fun to explore and try different things out, but this is definitely one that you would want to play multiple times. Like, this is not a game to get out and teach somebody for the first time as like the one game for the evening and then you just move on and never play it again. You just don't get everything within your first 2 to 3 plays, I would say. So
yeah. And I did do different things. There was that one round where I got like negative 70-some points for trying something different.
You had negative points in the game?
No, I started with 90 or whatever, and then I got so many negative parts that I didn't cover.
Oh.
Yeah.
That must have been
You did.
crushing.
You know it was crushing because I was sitting there counting. But that's how many different things I tried.
Yeah.
So, you try some, you don't try some.
But thank you for taking that journey with me into the land of A Feast for Odin.
Of course, and thank you for being patient with me as I pace the table, only to later beat you in this feast.
From the confusing grocery store.
From the confusing grocery store for the confusing party of 2 bags. But yeah, so thank you so much for listening to us this week. Be sure to join us next week. If you would like to send in a query for the court, feel free to email it at thedicejesters@gmail.com, or you can send it on over to Instagram since that is a little bit easier. Our Instagram is dicejesters. We also post pictures of the games we're playing. Sometimes we're out and about and we'll post pictures there. And of course, my fluffy little man's Lupin will be featured as well. If you would like to see some more behind the scenes and hear Dave's thoughts on things, or some quirky videos of my jubilations or jumbles, or, well, you know.
Jambles.
Jambles, that's what I called it, yes. Julie Jambles, as I do right now. Those can be found on our Patreon site. Our Patreon is Dice Jesters as well. And, as always, Be sure to play games with the ones you love.